Hello, everyone. I'm carnivore coach Parveen, hosting for Revero Success Story podcast, where we explore the question, how has the carnivore diet changed your life? Today, I would like to welcome Bruno. Bruno has lost 120 pounds, corrected his blood pressure, heart rate, blood sugar, triglycerides, snoring, joint pain, stiffness, excessive sleep, gout, and kidney stones on a carnivore lifestyle. Welcome, Bruno.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here today. So let's get started. How about you share a little bit about your background and what health conditions did you have prior to changing your diet?
Sure. Since my teens, I dealt with obesity and I straightened it out in my mid-late teens, but my hypothyroidism kicked in when I was 19. And so along with that was extreme exhaustion and weight gain. And over the next 20 years, I struggled with some of the side effects of that, as well as high cholesterol. So since my mid-20s, I've had high cholesterol. And when I got into my mid-30s, I'd yo-yoed back up to 450 pounds, trying to every diet and way of eating under the sun. The positive of that was that I learned quite a bit about nutrition, as well as my formal education as a massage therapist. We have a nutrition course in there. And I learned what was horrible about it. And I caused a lot of metabolism damage. I eventually saw a doctor when I was in my late 30s, early 40s for weight loss and sugar and carbohydrate addiction. And so that was about 8 years ago or 9 years ago. And that was the beginning of me learning I was addicted to carbs and sugar. I was surprised the first time when I was in college, realizing I had an addiction to sugar when I had a brownie after an exam, and I reacted just like a smoker having a cigarette after like a stressful day, and I just relaxed afterwards. And that's when I knew I had a problem, but not realizing the depth of it. So by the time I was 42, I had struggled with the above issues you had mentioned. And I had been plagued with gout since I was about 28 or 29. And every time I tried to lose weight, I would get a gout attack. And I learned what was causing that was the ketones always back up in the bloodstream and from the kidneys, because the kidneys are trying to pump out ketones and uric acid, and the ketones always get priority and the uric acid would back up. So every time I tried a way of eating to lose weight, even carnivore at first, it would trigger a gout attack. And so when I lost this weight with this doctor I saw in Toronto, I lost 150 pounds in 5 months on this zero carb diet. But unfortunately, it was also a low fat diet, and it caused a lot of problems. And I had struggled with gout the whole way through, and I was on very strong anti-inflammatories to manage my gout, my almost daily gout. And that was one of the things that triggered a heart attack. When just after I turned 42 years old, it was about a week after or 2 weeks after my birthday. And one of the side effects of steroid-based anti-inflammatories, which I was taking triple strength twice a day to manage the gout, was blood clots. And so I had a major heart attack. It was a 100% blockage in my right coronary artery. And so I have 3 stents in my heart. And here's the crazy part. Every time I was trying to lose weight since, I was getting these gout attacks even worse. And it turns out one of the medications I had to be on was aspirin. Baby aspirin triggers gout as well. So it was becoming a real uphill battle. And the gout eventually led to kidney stones. And so along with my heart problems, I had metabolic syndrome. Now that was undiagnosed. I was considered pre-diabetic. I had a physical just before my heart attack, and the doctor said, aside from your cholesterol and your high blood sugar, which he said you're approaching pre-diabetes, you're actually in pretty decent shape. I didn't deal with high blood pressure until they put me on medication for high blood pressure. So they put you on a cookie cutter treatment plan after a heart attack, where they put you on some cholesterol medication, blood pressure medication, blood thinners. Whether you need these things or not, you'll obviously need a blood thinners after you've had a heart attack. But even if everything else is good, they still put you on all those medications. And one by one, I eventually went off those medications with my doctor's approval, not my cardiologist's approval though, because he brought my cholesterol down to 1.2, my total cholesterol. And that's ridiculously low. And we ended up getting into a bit of a debate about that. He didn't like my answer when he was annoyed when I said I wanted my cholesterol higher. And he said, why would you want your cholesterol higher? You've had a major heart attack. And I said, well, my brain's made out of cholesterol, and so are my nerves. And so, cholesterol is what transports all the hormones and vitamins and nutrients throughout my body. So I had to get a new cardiologist because we just didn't see eye to eye. I eventually went off my medication. My good cholesterol is good. I realized there's an association between metabolic syndrome and uric acid problems. And I had a meeting with Dr. ShawnBaker about this. I paid for an appointment about a year and a half ago. And he said, you're just going to have to try to persevere through the gout attacks, because most people who persevere through the gout attacks on a carnivore diet end up dealing with the uric acid problems. And sure enough, it worked. But one of the key things that helped was finding out about this link between metabolic syndrome and uric acid problems. So, because there's nothing more frustrating when you're doing everything right through diet and exercise, and you keep getting plagued with these health problems, preventing you from losing weight. No matter if I lost it fast or slow through exercise or not, within the first day or two of eating, I'd get these horrible gout attacks. So,
can I ask may I just ask where they happened largely for you? Which joints it impacted?
They were normally happening in my toe. Triggered Siri. They were normally happening in my toe or foot. And when I first started carnivore, I did it for 3 months and got kidney stones. And my kidney stones were uric acid-based kidney stones, but I didn't have one gout attack in that first 3 months. So I asked the doctor, the urologist, the specialist, about my diet. And I said, look, I don't think this is possible, but I just started this all meats diet. And here I have these kidney stones. And he said, you can't develop kidney stones that fast. It takes a long time. And it turned out my kidney stones are uric acid based, which is the second most common type of kidney stones.
Right, versus calcium based, right? Yeah.
That's right. And he said, most likely, he said, have you been losing weight? And I said, yes, I've been losing weight and I haven't had one gut attack since I started this way of eating. And he said, it's probably because you have all these uric acid crystals embedded all throughout your body, in your fat cells and your muscle and in your joints. And when you start to lose weight, that can get them to start circulating out of the bloodstream or into the bloodstream and try and get flushed out of the body in the kidneys. And that's where it's backing up. So that's where these kidney stones came from. So I have been on allopurinol since. The only medication I'm on now is aspirin because I still want to keep my blood at a good consistency because I do have stents in my heart. So I found out about the link between metabolic syndrome and uric acid issues. I thought, okay, so metabolic syndrome is increased waistline to height ratio, high triglycerides, low good cholesterol, like the HDL, and high blood pressure, and what's the other one? I forget what the other one was, but either way, I had all 5 of these symptoms. High blood sugar. I had normal blood sugar from doing carnivore, but I was still getting high sugar spikes from eating, high enough because I was so insulin sensitive by this point after years of having screwed up insulin, that my insulin wasn't handling these minor spikes that I was getting even on a carnivore diet. So I took something to lower my blood sugar naturally. It's a product, it's an herbal product. And from that, sorry?
Berberine?
Berberine, that's exactly what it was, yeah. And I wasn't sure if I should say it on this. So and that was the last day I had a gout attack. And that was a year and a half ago. And that's what put me over the edge where I could consistently do a carnivore diet without the risk of these gout attacks. So I've been flying since, and it hasn't been a fast weight loss. I think when I lost that 150 pounds from seeing that doctor years ago, it caused a lot of metabolism damage from losing weight so fast. Studies are showing people lose up to 40% of their lean mass when they lose weight really fast. And so it makes it for a more uphill battle to keep it off, because now you've lost so much lean mass, you have a lower metabolism, and it's easy to put weight on afterwards. So unless you're exercising to try and undo that, it's an uphill battle. So I'm currently dealing with uric acid medication. But I'm really just taking it to play it safe, because I'm not sure if I should be off of it at this point, but I've definitely lessened it. And everything else is dealt with. My high blood pressure went away when I started zero carb. My high blood pressure went away. It got rid of the damage the medication caused, because for some reason it gave me high blood pressure. My waistline is getting better. My weight is getting better slowly, but it's moving in the right direction. So 120 pounds in a year and a half, some people lose that in 6 months doing carnivore, which is quite fascinating. Some people it takes longer. And I'm weight training, which has been good. So I'm increasing my metabolism and trying to maintain that lean muscle mass. And I've been getting DEXA scans to monitor this progress. So I'm making sure to just lose fat as well as maintain my muscle and bone density. So my triglycerides.
At your worst,
Sorry?
how many medications were you on?
At my worst, I was on allopurinol, aspirin, another blood thinner after the heart attack for a year, 2 blood pressure medications, a cholesterol medication, and the odd multivitamin I was taking here or there.
Wow, that's amazing.
I would take vitamin C because I knew it was a good antihistamine, and I do suffer from allergies. Ever since I developed hypothyroidism, I also got seasonal allergies. So doing zero carb eating, my allergy season lasts a week, and it's a 1/10 of how bad it used to be. So and it's been getting better every year. So
did you have a foggy brain? Did you have a foggy brain as well? Were you cloudy when you were thinking?
Yes,
did you notice
absolutely
that?
I did. Yeah. And I find if I eat too lean, I'll get some fogginess as well. So doing this lion diet right now, I'm 2.5 months into a lion diet, very strict. Interestingly enough, a couple of weeks ago, I had some joint inflammation in my ankles. And I thought, where did that come from? After all this time being on a carnivore diet, almost a year, and I haven't dealt with stiff ankles in such a long time. Where did this come from? And I realized I had pepper about 3 times in the week before. And I didn't even make that association as like why I had these stiff ankles in the last week. And I didn't think about it. It was pepper. Something, I just happened to be at someone's house one time, and I just put some pepper on the steak without thinking about it. And I assume it's the oxalates in the pepper that did that. So
yeah, no oxalates very well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You so what was I going to ask you? Yes, for your lion, you're calling it a lion diet. Did I say that?
Well, that's the name that it's been dubbed.
Yeah, can you tell our listeners the difference with that?
Yeah, I believe Michaela Peterson is the one that dubbed this title, and it's eating ruminant animals. So lamb, cow, I think any animal with multiple stomachs, I think typically is the type of animal you would typically eat on this type of diet. And it's basically just those meats, salt, and water, and that's it. So when I cheated with just pepper, I had a dramatic difference in how I felt in that week. And it took me a week to put it together. So it's not like it was psychosomatic where I said, I'll see how this pepper goes. And then the next day, had ankle pain, and then you could argue I imagine that pain. No, I was totally unassociated as far as my connection went.
Okay. So what other benefits did you experience with your health improving?
All the little things, when you bend over, you're not out of weight. When you walk up a flight of stairs, you have lots more energy. You're not huffing and puffing. It's allowed me to have better control in my life. The best part is I'm not ruled by food. So many people have a wrong attitude when they hear about a carnivore diet or lion diet, because they think it's so restrictive, but you're not controlled by food anymore. And because you're not controlled by food temptations and always wanting to have a snack or a meal, always worried about what your next meal is going to be, and living off of cravings. I would give into cravings for food and junk food like a smoker would with a cigarette. I always explain to people, I had to accept, after you have a major heart attack and you still haven't made life changes to correct those problems aggressively, you have a more serious problem that's underlying, that's causing this obesity in my case. And that was the sugar and carb addiction. So I found I had to accept the fact, after years of trying to manage my carb addiction, because after I saw that doctor in 2013 and 14, I, after a year, started reintroducing sugars very judiciously. It started with one small treat a week. And then it was 2 small treats a week. And that was the second month. And then the third month, I went for 3 small treats a week. And I'm talking like a child-sized scoop of ice cream, so small. And that was it. Once I went up to 3 servings a week, I was having ridiculous portion sizes again, and I was giving into all my cravings for junk food. And for the years afterwards, I came to the understanding that I can't manage it no matter how I tried, whether it was portion size or frequency. I was always giving into these cravings, and it's just the only way for me to do it was to abstain from these and go to a strict lion diet now, or a carnivore diet. So when I was doing the carnivore diet, I would still have cheese, I'd still have bacon. There's often a little bit of sugar in bacon, some trace amounts, but I would try and buy bacon low in sugar. And it was very manageable. The whole thing that made it easy for me was staying full on the food I could eat. So I probably could have lost weight faster in this last year, but I don't want to tackle too much at once. Trying to tackle a large appetite as well as sugar addiction isn't a great way to go. So I've introduced exercise for the last few months, and I'll work on portion sizes come the new year probably.
And how much more weight are you looking to lose?
That's interesting because, I'm expecting roughly about 80 pounds. I'm 237 pounds. Since I've been doing my little program since September 1st, I've actually put on a pound, which most people would find very discouraging. You're eating right and you're exercising, but with these DEXA scans I've been getting, and it's a full body x-ray that tells you all this information on muscle mass and bone density and body fat percentage and your resting metabolic rate. I've put on 10 pounds of lean mass and lost 9 pounds of fat. So it's 1 pound up in the wrong direction as far as weight loss goes, but it's the best direction to go in because it's lean mass. So I'm at about 337 right now, last I checked, and that was roughly what I was at when I started. And if I went down to 250, I'm 6'1", so at 250, I would expect to be down to about a 40, maybe a 38-inch waist. I would say a 38-inch waist. And I'm more concerned about height to waistline ratio than I am weight. If I have a lot of muscle mass on me and bone density, 240 to 50 pounds is probably not so bad on a guy my size. The last time I was down to 285 pounds, I was approaching a 40-inch waist. I was in between a 40 and a 42-inch waistline, like in dress pants. So I want to be more concerned about inches than weight, but right. I'm expecting to be around the 240 range.
And you mentioned thyroid function. Did you have to take medication for that at all, or did you sort of fell in love once you changed the way you started to eat?
I've been taking that medication since I was 19, and I was on the weakest dose. My doctor was very arrogant when I suggested to him I might have hypothyroidism, and I was 19. And he said, Bruno, women get hypothyroidism. And I said, could you just check? Because something's off. I put on 40 pounds in 3 months, and I was exhausted all the time. And he had to make a humbling call the day after my blood work, because sure enough, I did have hypothyroidism. And over a 25-year window, my medication went from the weakest dose all the way up to the strongest dose, one of the stronger doses. I was at 225 milligrams a day on levothyroxine.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I started on the weakest when I was 19. So I started taking iodine, bile salts, vitamin D, and I was on a zero carb diet, and without any weight loss. And this is right before I developed my kidney stones. Without any weight loss, my medication went down a quarter. So I went down to about I think it was 175 milligrams of medication. For the first time in over 25 years, my medication dropped in strength.
Wow.
Just from making proper choices in life.
Were you tested for antibodies too for Hashimoto?
No, no, I've never been.
All right. Just curious, because that tends to be common amongst people who carry a lot of oxalate load too.
Yeah, it's something I'll test for hopefully soon then.
Yeah, you should check that out too. So how about we go into the details of your current way of eating? I mean, you could definitely share how it's changed over time for you and what's working best for you, how you handle eating at work. And did you experience any difficulties transitioning?
My difficulties transitioning initially, when I first did it for 3 months before I got my kidney stones, it was easy. I just stayed full on red meat all the time. I found from doing this, red meat keeps me satiated longer. So I can have the same amount of meat at lunch, say a roasted chicken, and I would be starving by dinner. I'd be really hungry by dinner. But if I had that same amount of meat in volume, that was say ground beef or a steak, I wouldn't be hungry for almost a day. So I would eat when I was hungry. That's been rule one since day one. Eat when I'm hungry, eat till I'm satisfied. It's hard to get full doing carnivore because you always hit a satisfied level of your hunger before you get to a full level. So it was really nice getting to that point. And when I got my kidney stones, I had a hard time. I didn't stick with carnivore for the next 3 months just because I thought most likely odds were that I had calcium-based kidney stones. So I was actually drinking beer to help pass the kidney stones for a few months because I always heard that was something that was a common treatment to help pass the more pain-free.
I haven't heard of the beer. I've heard of lemon juice, but not.
Oh, yeah. They used to keep beer in hospitals years ago, back up until about the 70s for people passing kidney stones. Yeah. So ever since, I had a hard time getting back on a strict, steady carnivore diet because I was always giving into my sugar cravings. And I've always felt like a plane trying to take off on a runway. And it was always, when they kind of skip and they go, and then they finally take off. I felt like I did that for about 3 years afterwards.
Okay.
And then when COVID came and I saw there was a link between diabetic people and obese people with a high death or chance of death, I thought, well, can't fool around with this anymore. And I coincidentally, so I started the carnivore diet again, and I made a point to see Dr. ShawnBaker at that time. So that was I think it was May of 2020. And so he said, just try persevering through it. And sure enough, like I said, I got on the berberine, and that's what helped me to get through it. And ever since, I've been steady. Actually, you know what? That's not quite true. That was it from May till September. And I had to put my dog down last year. And it really shook me. It was really difficult. And I did emotional eating for 4 months straight. Now, I've done bad eating in the past where for a weekend or a week, you just have a bunch of restaurant food and junk food. But I did that for 4 months straight. And I undid all the success that I had earlier that year. And I remember thinking, this is when I realized how bad my food addiction was, that I couldn't control it. Looking at my entire health history, I noticed myself a month into it and I thought, wow, I haven't even slowed down. I got to do something about this. And then month 2 went by and I thought, I didn't even slow down at all. I just kept going with it. And month 3 went by and I thought, this is definitely not good. And then I went into the 4th month eating that way too. And it was a coincidence that it was early January and I stopped because I realized at one point, not like a cigarette with a smoker, the people who tend to quit for the rest of their lives with smoking are the people who one day stopped and had, as my dad said, an out-of-body experience where they looked at that cigarette and thought, what am I doing? And tossed it. And I went on that binge for so long. I felt like it was the equivalent of like the old story of the old man giving his kid a carton of cigarettes after he found him smoking the first time. You always hear those old-fashioned stories. And he said, you're going to smoke the whole thing. And you're going to get sick of it and you'll never smoke again. And I sort of did that after almost a lifelong bad diet. I did that with all the food, and I just did it so bad, and it got so bad for so long. I realized how bad it had me, that this sugar addiction had me to the point where my health was so bad and I couldn't stop. And that's when I realized, like, I didn't have any control over this. I submitted to the fact that I knew it had control over me. And once I accepted that, it was easy to put it in its place, because I knew I couldn't control it. As much as I was trying to control it before that with judicial amounts here or there, you just can't. And I can't anyway. So that was when I went just straight to carnivore this year, or it was like, I think a week into January. And my my health problems have gotten better and better, despite what my doctor likes. My doctor does not like the fact I'm doing a carnivore diet.
Yeah, they never do.
And yeah, and it's a shame, because I said to him, like, if all my numbers are good now, and the couple that are bad, my cholesterol, which I'm fat adapted, so it makes sense that I have higher LDL, and my waistline is still high, but it's getting better. I'm down 7 or 8 inches on my waist now since early January. What's the problem? Like, how is there a problem with this? All these other numbers are out of whack, and I had metabolic syndrome, and I was pre-diabetic, and possibly was diabetic. Why are you trying to discourage me from doing something that works? So he doesn't have an answer for that, other than there's no long-term data on this. And I said, well, but we do know the long-term data on the direction I was going in, and that was definitely not good. So he can't argue this, unfortunately, because he can't argue that it's good or bad. So, it's unfortunately a limitation lots of doctors have right now.
Well, Bruno, thank you so much for your story. It is very inspiring. You have learned so much. I mean, just the knowledge you have right now, I'm sure you can help so many people. And to everyone that's listening right now to Revero, I'm sure you'll inspire a lot of the listeners to make changes in their life as well. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Join Revero.health for a 30-day free trial to get access to live Q&A with VIP guests, social community meetings, member discounts, low-carb healthcare providers list, forum, workouts, monthly challenges, early access to podcasts, recipes, carnivore diet guide, fasting guide, shred guide, and much more.